Okay, thank you for watching. This is our next series, The Power of Presence in Online Learning. We're going to talk about what it means to be present in an online course and different types of presence, and then we'll look at some tools that will help you facilitate presence in your course for yourself and for your students, especially with regards to collaboration between students. So just kind of taking a look at some of the research with regards to presence in an online course. Um, a lot of instructors see social presence as the same thing as instructor presence. When we talk about social presence, we mean, just what it sounds like, right? Sending an email, saying hello, seeing someone on a web chat. These are social things. Instructor presence would be things like providing feedback for a grade, commenting on a discussion board in a critical manner, um, assigning work to students. Like these things are almost kind of interchangeable to most folks, right? Presence is presence and presence. A rose is a rose is a rose. Um, and really, we see that instructor presence is vital in that um, it makes you someone who is approachable. It makes you seem like, which hopefully most people are, that you are concerned for the success of your students. And it's a way for you to demonstrate expertise for your students. You are the subject matter, and maintaining good presence in your course is a way for you to demonstrate that to your students. And a lot of this kind of concern comes from the idea that online courses are usually asynchronous, meaning that not everyone is together in the same time in the same place every time they interact with the course. But just because a course is asynchronous doesn't mean that the instructor is uninvolved, right? You're still active, you're still present in the course. Another thing that the research shows is that we as instructors are sort of torn about how much of ourselves do we let our students in on, how much of ourselves do we show to them, right? And that can kind of cut both ways. So like I worked with an instructor for years, and she was a self-described crazy cat lady, and so much so that she had actually built a house behind her new house, a smaller version of her new house, where she let her cats live, and she would post pictures of her cats in her online course for her students. So that's one extreme. I kind of lead towards the other way, in that I don't give a lot of personal details about myself to my students. I just let them know kind of what my research interests are and my qualifications to teach a class, and I kind of leave it at that. When I taught K-12, I was probably more involved because those students needed to see that from you. But for me, probably a good middle ground is another instructor I worked with. She was in family consumer sciences, and she had a real passion and interest in sewing. And for her, these costumes, these very elaborate sewing projects and costumes that she made, she would submit these for conferences, and they were part of her research agenda. And so she would share images and stories about the costumes that she built in her course. And so it let students kind of know something about her, but it was also related to the course content. So you choose what works for you. It's good that students see you have a life, but that you're a real person, but you're also willing to help kind of guide them through their education journey. Feedback. This is something we kind of discussed in one of the other sessions that we did this semester, but feedback is a real kind of key strategy in any online course. If you've ever taken an online course, and I'm currently an online student now in a PhD program, if there's not a lot of chances for interaction with the faculty member or with other students, taking an online course can be a really isolating experience. It can feel very lonely. Research shows too that if you provide in lots of chances for good feedback for students, then that leads to more students staying in your class. So if you don't have feedback, you're going to lose some students in your online course. Something else that is of concern, not so much here at McNeese, but possibly maybe something we'll look at in the future, is the idea that more and more instructors are having to take on courses that they didn't design themselves. So I'm coming from an institution where we had master courses, and as we got new faculty members, or if there was an adjunct who had to take the course over, then here is a course that is fully developed, ready to go out the box, and they're set up and ready to teach the course, which is great if the course is well designed. Not so great if it wasn't as well designed, and didn't have chances for good feedback and good chances to have good instructor presence in the course. So again, not a problem here, although I have run into that a couple times where someone was taking over or using a base course to start their own online course. But if that's something that you are going to do, make sure that you can incorporate chances for good instructor presence in that course if that's a possibility. Something else to consider, another type of presence we can look at is cognitive presence. And this is just really the student's kind of ability to learn, right? To kind of construct meaning out of the content that they're consuming in your course. And we want students to have good cognitive presence in the course. Something interesting to note is that researchers found that if you have a good social presence, positive social presence in the course, then that also leads to a strong cognitive presence. And really, it's all about kind of having the students interact and you interacting with students. The more presence, the more interaction that you have in the course, the more likely your students are going to be to learn the course material. And that's kind of the important thing. And this presence also leads to students too, right? So we want students to be present in the course and active in the course. And so that's why we often assign collaboration projects or group projects to students, which they all love, right? Yeah, no, they don't. And there's some reasons for that. A lot of times they don't get good communication from their teammates, or one person ends up doing all the work and for the entire group, or they just don't really know them that well, and they don't feel comfortable working with those people because they just don't know them. And I, like I said earlier, I'm a student in classes. It's I have to do group projects with my folks as well, and I tend to gravitate towards people that I've worked with previously, that I know what their work ethic is like. To what the schedules are for those people, like people who work 8 to 5, kind of like I do, so that we can meet afterward or on our lunch break or during kind of the same time. So that can be a challenge for collaboration for students. How do you get students to collaborate in your course? Well, I met an instructor who would actually teach students how to collaborate. She just didn't say simply like, here's a group project, join up and go do it with someone else. She had a whole little collaboration unit where she taught students about giving good feedback. She taught students about how to communicate effectively. She taught them how to schedule their time and to schedule their project out so that it comes in on time. That's a good thing to have. She also would provide them a list of tools to help them with all of these things, to help them give feedback, to help them communicate with each other, to help them schedule. So it's not enough to simply to tell your students, hey, go be in a group and go do some group work. No, if possible, you want to show them how to do it, or at least how to do it to your specifications, or how to do it for your course's content. Whatever you decide to do in your class, however you decide to maintain presence, consistency is probably your biggest friend in this endeavor. So we kind of talked about this earlier, but how much of yourself you're going to share, be consistent in that. Also, too, like, how should they contact you? Do you give out your cell phone to your students? I've been in classes where instructors do. I've worked with instructors that do give those things out. It's not something I would ever do in my class, and there's some other tools, and we'll look at one in just a minute, where it kind of mimics the idea that sending text messages back and forth, but they don't actually have your cell phone. So how are students going to communicate? Do you give them access to like maybe a Gmail account that you like to check, or is it strictly through the McNeese email? How are you going to communicate with these folks? And then how active or how social are you going to be in the class? I tend to say people, especially in the beginning of the course, the start of the course, be overactive. Answer emails a little bit faster than you would normally. Respond to a few more discussion boards than you would normally. And then once you've established what your routine is going to be like, or you've kind of established that presence in the course, then you begin to back off a little bit. I know for myself, I tend to establish some really good, strong communication policies in the course, and I do my best to stick with those. So for my class, I will tell students within Monday through Saturday, I will respond to all emails within 24 hours, and I'm available in my office on these days, and here's the phone number. Okay, and then I don't respond or make any things on Sundays. Now, typically, I will still respond to emails on Sundays. I just don't promise that I will respond to emails on Sunday. But what is your communication policy? Do you respond within 36 hours? Do you only answer emails Monday through Friday? Are you going to hold a weekly web conference with them? Decide these things in advance, put them in your syllabus, and make sure students are aware of what these policies are. Okay, so we kind of mentioned asynchronous before, but synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous, being live. This is what your face-to-face class is, right? It is a synchronous environment. Asynchronous, this is what most online courses are. Not everyone in the same place at the same time working on the material at concurrently. So, if possible, mix the two things together, right? Research shows that online courses that do have some synchronous component to them, maybe a weekly web meeting perhaps, those students are retained at higher rates than those that do not have a synchronous component. This doesn't mean you need to have a web session or deliver 3-hour lectures 3 times a week or something. That's not what this is. It can simply be on Saturdays for 45 minutes, I'm going to be available at this time. Or every Tuesday night at 6 p.m., this is when I'll be online if you'd like to ask questions. I know in the class I'm taking right now, the instructor, we meet every 2 weeks on Tuesday at 7:30. And really, it's just about clarifying the previous module's content and then looking ahead to the next week's content, asking questions, getting clarification on any assignments, kind of giving general direction. But I've been in other classes where, hey, it's been a lecture for 3 hours every week. So it's up to you, but I would encourage you, if you can, to put some synchronous component into your course if at all possible. And some ways to do that are some of these kind of tools here. So Big Blue Button is built into all the Moodle courses, and that's nice because you can also record your sessions, right? Google Hangouts is something I've talked about before. I really like. You just have to have a Gmail account. Skype, some people are big Skype people. If you've ever used Zoom for like a business or a conference, it's really nice, and there's a free option out there. I think it's limited to 40 minutes for the free session per meeting, but I think you have up to 100 folks. So, but again, all ways to kind of help to build your presence in the course. So some tools to kind of help with collaboration and presence. Slack, I've talked about Slack before. I love it. It's a chat tool, right? But you can build different channels based on the relationships with the different users. So maybe you've got a channel per class, or a channel for your undergraduates, and then a channel for your graduate students. It's up to you. Video calling should be coming soon to chat, to Slack. And then also, it's a great way to share documents. I've talked before about how I had a research project and I had audio files and translation files of the audio files, and I was just able to dump all that information in Slack and share with my group members, and we could see it all together. Google Hangouts, great tool. Google Docs. I like Google Docs a lot because, number one, it keeps everything organized right there for you. It's really easy to share out to a lot of different formats and places. Give people different levels of permission to like view or edit or share. You can live write on the document, which we've done a lot in various groups that I've participated in. It's really nice to see like people's name next to the text that starts to appear, and next to in kind of different colors, and see those live edits, and also the versioning. So like you can have a version and revert back to a previous version. So if someone totally messed it up, then you don't have to panic. You can kind of jump back in time to check out a previous version of the document. PeerGrade, this is a new one. I haven't used directly myself yet. I'm going to get my wife to try it out. She teaches 8th grade science, so sometimes she's my guinea pig for these things. But if you do any sort of peer review in your courses, this is a new tool. It's free to use. You can set up an assignment. You create a rubric for that assignment to have students grade by. And then students turn their work in, and then at the end of the availability period, the work is then distributed anonymously out to the students in the course to grade, and then they grade it and then return it, and it gets you all kind of good metrics, and you can see how students are grading, and it just looks like a really neat tool. I'd be interested to see if anyone would like to try that out. I mentioned Remind earlier. If you're looking for a way to kind of send text without giving out your phone number, this is a pretty neat tool. I got this one from my wife. She uses this with her middle school students a lot, because you certainly don't want to give 8th graders your cell phone number. But the messages come in. It's got the student's name next to it. You know who's sending it to you. You can respond to them. You can also just send out mass reminds to everyone in the class. It's free to use. It works really well. Dropbox, I've talked about Dropbox too. I love Dropbox. You can put it on multiple devices. It's got a great mobile client. You can author in real time. There's also a plugin from Microsoft. You can comment on all the documents. Lots of different share options there, versioning as well. Big Blue Button, built into Moodle, 100-person limit. You can record your session. And then, if you're just looking to get started, kind of injecting some presence in your course, and you're not sure, hey, discussions are always a great way to start. It's just an easy way to get communication going in your course. It's built into every course. You can grade them. Replies are threaded. So that's a good option to start with. And then finally, Turnitin. I'm not sure how many of you are using the inline grading function in Turnitin, but it works really well and it's pretty effective, and gives some nice kind of distinct visual feedback to students. I've been talking with the Turnitin folks, and they kind of went through some training with them and saw how to go through and grade some documents. And I think I'm going to have them come out or do a virtual training with us for the spring semester. And they've got some kind of new tools that are coming into effect. So we'll be looking for that. And then I'm sure that you've got ideas or ways that you build presence in your course, and that are unique to you, and hopefully some of these techniques might aid you. The main thing to consider is that there's different types of presence. There's social presence, there's instructor presence, there's cognitive presence. It's really about building and maintaining engagement in your course and get students participating, and you participating, communicating with your students, and being active in your courses. That's what's the most important thing. And if you do that, you're going to keep your students in your class, and your students are going to learn more, and the research shows that. So if you are interested in these articles, they're all listed here. And then also we've got links to a lot of the tools that we discussed. Thank you.